What's up, everybody? Welcome back here for another episode of And with me today is my co-host Jeremy. Jeremy, shout out to the Panthers. I was awesome.
Yeah, uh, great game too, and even the series and a lot of action to go along with it.
Yeah, we'll talk about all of it here. First off, got to give a shout out to our producer Joel. This can be a fun episode here for the best. I'm pumped up to do this one today. Felt good to get a win in the second. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go over in this game. There was no shortage of entertainment.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of action. We saw every single bit. We had a shorthanded goal. We had a power play goal. We had even strength. Everything happened in this game. We had, I thought we saw great goaltending from both sides. I thought both sides displayed some great goaltending despite the big score. But yeah, it was a great game, great way to even it up, and most importantly, we saw a lot of improvements after the first period.
Yeah, I thought that was the most encouraging part. After that, yeah. So that first period, it was funny. I was actually I was very worried, and then I saw your tweet, and it gave me confidence again. But boy, did it look bleak there for a little bit. They were doing nothing right in the first period, and then out of nowhere, they just come out, and after that Lawrence goal, they back.
Yeah, they switched the lines up, and that was something that we had said about on the last podcast, saying, hey, the lines didn't really work too well. I mean, it was all right, but we needed to see more momentum. So yeah, they got Barkov and Reinhardt back on the same line, and it immediately started clicking. Barkov and Reinhardt both had great games for themselves and for the team. That line one was firing in all cylinders. The Lawrence line was looking good too. That fourth line, honestly, all lines I didn't have a problem with. I thought all of them looked good. The Kachuk line was a little bit quiet, but even then, they were by the end of the game they weren't quiet anymore just because of everything that was happening. But as soon as I switched the lines, I put out a tweet. It was more so not necessarily me being confident they were going to win, but more so just wanting them to win. And I said the Panthers will win this game today, and they scored 6 straight goals. So it worked.
So we know what we have to do if we're ever down again. You just gotta tweet out. But yeah,
But yeah,
for me, just the only concerns really from like the start of the game, where I feel like Boston had a few like wide open chances, like the Martian wide empty net goal that he somehow missed comes to mind. There was a Beecher chance. I believe it's John Beecher. I might be wrong, but it was like a
yeah,
pass off a pad. Yeah. And like, I mean, those go in. Like, obviously, it's a completely different game. But once the Panthers got that first goal, they just did not look back. Like, then I felt like they started to play so much better. Um, yeah, I mean, it was just incredible from that point on how much they just looked like a new team. And was it because of the line change? I don't really know. I think it was just they finally like felt that they had a step and they knew they could beat Swayman. And yeah, I mean, besides the just ending of the game, the rest of the hockey actually was very impressive from the Panthers and felt good to see.
yeah. And honestly, going back to Swayman, I thought he played a really solid game. I thought in that first period he was stopping us in every which way. He was getting everything. He was seeing everything clearly. He was stopping everything. He wasn't giving us any angles. And again, it looked like it was going to be a really tough game to win, especially after they had that goal late in the second, I mean late in the first. So I mean, it wasn't looking good heading into that first intermission. Although as soon as the lines did switch up, we did start getting a little bit of momentum going either at the end, but the last 3 minutes of the first period, which looked a lot better than the first 17 minutes. But I thought Swayman was looking really good, and then I thought the Panthers really just woke up. And I think I feel like it does have something to do with the fact that the line changed, but we saw so many more just not necessarily wide open opportunities, but just so many more high danger opportunities that were just in front of the net. For example, that Reinhardt shot on the power play too. We got exactly to what we had been doing during the regular season, where we got Barkov this time instead of when Kachuk, it was Barkov got to the bumper, passed right in front of the net to Reinhardt, worked perfectly, didn't score, but we had that opportunity there. We got power play goal later on in the third. I believe against Olmark though, but and we also had, of course, the Reinhardt shot that went in after Barkov put it back home in front of the net. I thought we had so many more high danger opportunities compared to what we were playing with in round one. I mean, not round one, game one, where it felt like it was kind of just throwing it and hoping for a tip.
Yeah, yeah, they did a good job of getting in front of him. Like there was always a guy screening Swayman, or two guys screening him even, and that's just what you got to do when a goalie is playing that well. So full credit to the Panthers, like they just executed a game plan, they adjusted, and I think the Bruins will probably readjust in Game 3. Um, I honestly like to be sort of unbiased here for a minute. If I was a neutral fan, I don't think what the Bruins are doing is working or gonna work against the Panthers. Like this is a team that has thrived off just the chippiness, the intensity. Like if you go back to last year in the playoffs and then this year, like they love it. This is what they how they love to play. Like, and not saying that the Bruins can't play this way and possibly get the best of them, but like take it off the Panthers. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't see why the Bruins were doing it. I think it'd be to their benefit to not start these scrums and stuff. But if they're going to start it, the Panthers will not back away. And while they're worried about sending a message, sending a tone, having Pat Maroon hit Kachuk and stuff like that, I think the Panthers go out and just focus on winning Game 3, which that's the more important thing to me as a fan, winning Game 3 in the series than sending a message. But hey, if they want to do that, that's fine by me.
Yeah, what I saw in what I actually saw in game, I mean, in game two, honestly, it kind of reminded me of last year. It almost felt like it's Boston. Boston went after Florida the same way. I felt like Florida went after Boston after we went down 3-1 in the series, and that same way of just like Kachuk going after Olmark and all of the guys getting in scrums, being down 3-1, trying to send a message, and almost I felt like Boston was playing our game. And it felt like I was watching a Panthers game. I mean, we were watching a Panthers game, but I felt like I was watching a Panthers almost versus Panthers game. It felt like I was watching the same exact team because they were trying to do the same exact thing that we do, and which is definitely something that I haven't really seen. Like I don't think I ever saw Tampa ever do that. I mean, Tampa was obviously getting the scrums with us, but not to that point where you saw Pat Maroon going out of his way across the ice to go ahead and corner whoever it was. Was it Kachuk? I don't remember who it was, but
Nick
going
Cousins.
after them.
Nick
No,
Cousins.
okay. I was gonna say I thought it was Cousins, but I didn't know who it was. But going after Cousins or Pastrnak and Kachuk getting into their fight, which was obviously amazing. By the way, that was a great fight to watch.
That
But
was one of the coolest things I've ever seen live. Like I never in a million years would have thought something like that would have
no,
happened.
well,
And to be there,
even on TV, they didn't. Not even the camera crew ever thought it was going to happen because the announcers were saying, the fight is happening, the fight's almost over, and the camera crew is still showing the other side of the ice. They had no idea what was going on.
yeah. For how it happened for me when I was there, like I saw no, actually this was prior in the night. I saw Marchand and Kachuk talking to the ref, like just on that huddle. And I just took a picture like as a joke. I was like, just our best minds coming together. And then like later I think that I saw them talking and I like didn't even think anything of it. Like I was just like happy in the moment, like we're just crushing them, and then the place just goes wild. So I'm like, I look and I'm like, what? Like what? Like that's Kachuk
Did
and
they show the
Pastrnak
replay
like
on
going
there?
at it. Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was incredible. They usually don't show like replays of like anything there, but they of course got that. Yeah, I mean,
Just
it was just so epic to see live. That like just what a moment in the playoffs. Like what a moment. Sports like that just does not happen. It was so cool. I don't know how
hockey
anyone
like
couldn't
paused
love it.
for a second, like almost for the rest of the game. The game didn't even matter almost because of how
Honestly.
big that moment was. Of just you had the two biggest stars on both sides of the ice going ahead and going after each other.
Yeah, and like I get it from Bruins fans. Like I feel for them, and this is every fan base across the world. Everyone thinks everyone's out to get him, and every other team has the dirty players and all this. But they're just such sore losers. I feel like about yesterday, and just like all the fights and stuff. Like it's just crazy to me. Like that you can't just take off like the fandom for a second and just be like, that was so damn cool that happened. Like everyone's talking about it. Like it should be great, and now you got an opportunity in game three to come back and answer and like win the game. Go win the game. Like don't be concerned about how we're gonna get payback on Kachuk for being caught up in the moment and hitting Pasternak on the ground. Like that's your biggest concern here of that. Like you should be worried about how you were playing the rest of the game. That'd be what my concern would be.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Boston, I'd be very concerned of the fact that, as we said before, as soon as the lines were switched up and everything, Boston had no way to counter them. And they had they had a good power play. I'll give them that. Boston had a great power play. It looked like in the second period they had quite a bit of momentum and quite a bit of chances to try and tie it when it was 2-1. But after the second period, it was all Florida again in the third. It felt like, even watching on TV, just Forsling's goal with zero point 0.3 seconds left took all the air out of Boston's sails going into the intermission. Like I was thinking,
Very
maybe going
similar to
into
us last game.
yeah,
Very similar.
yeah. Actually, it basically did go like kind of go over like the same exact pattern almost with Boston scored, or I mean, or the losing team scored first, scored early, and then after that it was just all the other team, and this time it was Florida scoring three in the second, all unanswered, and then three more in the third, and it was all Florida from about halfway on the second period. After that, it was just all Florida.
Yeah, and they're just finally like to me they played the right way, and like that was what's most encouraging. Like they knew what they did wrong in the first game, and it's one thing to say it, and of course they were going to say they knew what they did wrong and what we got to do to fix it. But then they went out there and proved it. Like yeah, they got lucky like on those big misses, but if if the Bruins aren't going to capitalize on their opportunities, like you better be sure you capitalize on them and make them pay for it. And that's what they did. Like just the chances they had, they capitalized. It was incredible, just execution, honestly. And then if you go into game three and just do the same thing, I feel very confident in game three. And then I think at worst you could get 1 out of 2 and then make it a best of three.
Yeah, I agree. At the very worst, you have to take one of these games in Boston. You obviously don't want to go back home 3-1. I mean, all I'm gonna say is, as much as I'll be upset if we go down 3-1, we don't win any of the games in Boston. It'll be really fun for Twitter, just because I will definitely be making a tweet saying we got them where we want them. uh, However, we do not want to go down 3-1 again, because we do not want to have to repeat history. Um, so with that being said, just take one, please. Be able to take at least one in Boston. If you can win both, please, that would be awesome too. Although if we did end up losing a 3-1 lead, that would be even more embarrassing for us. But the point remains: take at least one in Boston. Get some momentum as you go home, because then you make it the best three, and you have home ice advantage, which is just the best for Florida in this case.
Yeah, and I think to kind of look forward to game three, it seems like there is an actual real possibility this time that Sam Bennett comes back.
Yes.
In the other games, like it felt like there was a chance, but like it was made abundantly clear that there was no chance. Like, and in retrospect, like there was no chance. But now, with him being in the team, I believe today he skated fully with the team instead of with the
Yes, and
scratches.
tomorrow he's going to be fully practicing.
So I think that's very good sign. My concern though is like how effective is he going to be, because this clearly was not like this wasn't something he could play. I don't know if maybe he just had to wait for the swelling in his hand to go down so much, and it was just like a really bad bruise. But like, I mean, maybe
Yeah,
it's
I
worse. Like I don't know.
I hate to say it, but considering how we saw so many of the injuries happen last year that were just so insanely major that usually would probably write him out for almost the rest of the year. Like,
Yeah.
we saw torn labrums, we had heel injuries, we had we dislocated shoulders, and Radko Gudas at one point missed one period when he probably should have missed over a month from a high ankle sprain. And we also saw Matthew Tkachuk missed one game after he suffered his injury, and I can't imagine what Sam Bennett's going through right now if he had to miss this many games in a row. So I mean, at this point, it does feel like it was a broken hand, and if that is true, and like my assumptions are true, we're probably not going to see a nearly as effective Bennett, and we might just be seeing him in there just for momentum and just to re-energize the team, to see the guy back in the locker room and be able to dress and skate with them. But I mean, as Maurice said, I'll try to take that with the most of my concerns a little bit away, just because of the fact that he said it wasn't as bad as they expected. So maybe he is telling the truth, but with how many games he missed, I can't imagine that he's feeling all right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But for him, like, I know it must have been like torture to watch all these games, and especially last night, like as game he's made for. I mean, he would have been thrown out like before Nick
Oh,
Cousins probably,
him
but
him and Ryan Lomberg would have both. If him and Ryan Lomberg were on the ice, they were about to have the Ottawa Senators versus Panthers all
yeah,
over again. Everyone on the ice is gone. We would have had that again.
uh,
Lomberg would
yeah,
have had the time of his life. He would have had the biggest smile on his face, leaving hands up in the air.
that would have been incredible. That would have been something. But yeah, for Bennett, we'll see. I'll be interested to see. I'll be watching, but yeah, I mean, I just you really don't know, and we won't have any idea until we see him out there. Um, it was a little concerning. I think um, he was at like the F1 event here in Miami, and he took a picture, and like his like left hand was like behind whoever. Like I don't think that was by coincidence. Like I think that there's something there, and we don't want people seeing that. And then like someone brought up the point, like on the team plane, they don't picture him. Like I'm sure he has like a cast. Like I don't know like how he can play, but I think he's playing. Like he found a way, and it's gonna happen. Um, I mean, these guys like just tough as nails, but you know, the team's playing well. I don't know who you take out of the lineup. For me, it would be probably Nick Cousins. Just by default, like you cannot obviously take Lawrence out. He's got 2 goals. I think Okposo has brought a lot to the table.
I
So
agree. I think Oposo has actually been really. I feel like he's been really impressive for his age,
looks like
and
he's like 25 again.
yeah, he does. He's actually looked really good in a Panthers uniform. He's been a lot. He's brought a physical presence. He's brought a veteran presence. He's great for the locker room. He's actually been fun to watch quite a few times in that fourth line, which is great to see. Um, and I thought Nick Cousins hasn't played necessarily that badly, though he's been a little bit less noticeable. So with that being said, I kind of feel like I kind of do agree with you that it might have to be Nick Cousins that goes to the lineup, and because I mean Lawrence has been really good. I thought, I mean he did have a little bit of a misplay there yesterday with on like a 2-on-1 where he did have a little bit of an error there, but he made up for it with that incredible tip in. So I agree. It probably have to be Nick Cousins, unfortunately.
I think something that really interesting that like goes under the radar, what Octoso's bringing, is like if you haven't noticed, he's been doing a lot of media, and like
Yeah,
I think like the media availability, like I this is I don't know, I've never been in a locker room and stuff, but I think like they select certain guys, like you got a choice, like obviously like Kachuk and Barkov, like they got to do their time, like you can't fly under the radar for them, but like Okposo's stepping up and like doing the 10 minutes a day that like some guys probably hate to do and don't want to do, like that's something just like a little thing in the locker room that takes a lot of pressure off like the other guys and just stuff that I think is cool. That like won't ever get talked about, but it's just stuff he's bringing. So I think sadly it will have to be Nick Cousins. Also, like just the size of Boston, I'm curious to see if they make some lineup changes for this game because like as much as the Boston faithful would love for Pat Maroon to fight Matthew Kachuk, which is not going to happen, you could write that down. Like, why is Matthew Kachuk going to waste his time with a guy who plays 5 minutes a game? And sure, he'll probably kick his ass, and so why would he do it? It wouldn't make any sense. But like, there's like four other Pat Maroons on the team. Like, any of those guys can do the same thing Pat Maroon does, which is fight Kachuk and beat the shit out of him because they're like 5 inches taller than him, and like 40 more pounds or more, something like that. So I don't think if you're Boston, you should keep Maroon in, but I think they are in. I think it's a mistake. I don't know where this series will go, but through the two games, like I will also be very interested to watch Dallas, Colorado tonight to see if there's similarities. Because I think like it looked like Boston finally like game set playing the 7 game series caught up to them last night in the second period and beyond. To me, that's what it looked like. So I think if
Yeah.
Dallas kind of shows the same signs, I mean these turnarounds are so quick. Like I get why they pulled Swayman. Some people who would be like, oh, like why would you pull him? He was playing so well. Like why let Moore go past him? Like in any way, shape, or form. Like if Moore go past him, could only hurt his confidence. Like just take him out. Like he's playing well. He didn't do anything wrong. Like you said earlier, he played very well. I thought it was a good move to take him out. And I have no doubt that he's be the starter for Game 3, though.
Yeah, actually, that was gonna be one of the things I was gonna bring up. I'm very interested to see what they do because there was a little bit of concern about Swayman heading into game two because at one point it looked like Omar might have been the starter because based on the fact that Montgomery does like to switch the goalies quite a lot to go ahead and have them have their little goalie carousel of Swayman one game, the next game Olmark, and it looked like going into game two was going to be Olmark that was going to start because Olmark was the first skater off the ice for the Bruins. So it looked like he was going to be the starter for game two, though it was Swayman, and obviously it had to be just because of how good he played against Toronto and how good he played in game one. So that wasn't that was pretty obvious that was going to happen. However, now that Swayman gotten pulled once, I do wonder if Montgomery does switch it up and he goes back to what was working before and he goes to Olmark, which if it does, things could get very interesting very fast because we don't know how that's going to how Swayman's going to handle that, how Olmark's going to handle that, how the coach is going to handle that, the team in general. That could have a lot of repercussions for the Boston Bruins, the fan base too. So that's gonna be very that'll be something to see tomorrow. And but yeah, also I'd like to go ahead and just completely off topic, but talk about the game last night, the Vancouver game. First off, the best part of Vancouver, what a game that they came back down 4-1. They came back and won 5-4, and most importantly, the Green Men were back. The Green Men were back in Vancouver. What a great sight for NHL.
What a sign! Did you see the sign they had for Evander Kane?
Yeah, that was
That was
amazing. The
incredible. Yeah,
parlay
that
sign
was
was
so good.
amazing.
They don't miss. The Green Men don't miss.
They said before after they made their return during the regular season this season and they had their whole thing and they weren't able to use all their signs. I think they even went up against Boston, but when that had all happened and they had that, they were saying, oh, we probably won't make it for the playoffs. We probably won't make it again. It'll be hard. And then they did show up for the playoffs, and I was like,
Oh, the place
yes.
must have went nuts. The place must have
I
went nuts.
I was really hoping I could find like footage of like the entire arena, but I couldn't. All I could find was like the in-game voice and it, like shutting off after that. So I couldn't really find anything after that. But I was like, I can only imagine that the fan base must have just that had to energize the entire arena. That was insane to see.
Yeah, that game was awesome. I said I wasn't going to stay up for the whole thing, but I'm very glad I did. Like,
I had to.
I know that was incredible. Honestly, me personally, I have not believed in Vancouver like all season. Like from the start, I kept saying they're gonna give out. Like, and then I was like, oh, come playoffs, they aren't gonna win. Like they don't play, and it was only one game. It may only be one game, but finally, like I could see a path to them going to the Stanley Cup Finals. Honestly, especially if that path requires getting Demko back. But I mean, this Oilers team, like the story of the Oilers is they run out of goaltending come playoff time, and they can't outscore their problems enough. Eventually, could be the story again. Draisaitl appeared to be
Yeah,
hurt.
that power play can't save them forever.
Yeah. So Draisaitl, I saw him got hurt, and like obviously it looked pretty bad. And then comes back in, and then after the game, Knobloch says it's just cramps. It's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
just cramps. And then he doesn't skate today. So I think
Oh, I didn't even
it's
see that
something
part.
very severe. Yeah, I think it's something very severe.
Yeah. If you lose Draisaitl, that's very scary for the Oilers.
They may be able to still get by the Canucks, like just because of like the goaltending could let them down. Not buying the Seelov's experience just yet, but
Yeah, I mean,
um,
it's pretty hard to. I mean, hey, Nashville put up a really good fight against Vancouver, so
yeah. But honestly, if they could get to the next round and then Demko could come back, like he could steal 4 games. So like I think the West is wide open. I think honestly, if Draisaitl's down, the Oilers I would say would have a tough time winning 2 series. But yeah, I mean, all the teams in the West I think are good. And then watching a bit of this Rangers Carolina game here. Carolina's up 1-0. I think the deeper the series goes, the more it favors Carolina, and then they could have some confidence.
yeah, I completely agree. I was going to say the same thing. I still, despite it being 2-0, even Brian has said this many times, but I do see this happening where I could really see this series going 6 to 7 games and Carolina pulling up an upset and winning this series. So
That
I
they
mean,
would
it's gonna be
be
a really fun series to watch.
all these series have been good.
Yeah, they have, they really
Yeah,
have.
yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. Like I'm trying to think. The only series, even the Avs Dallas game had a 3-goal comeback in that. Like
Yeah, I mean,
it's
even overtime was fun to watch. That was a really good overtime to watch because both teams had so many chances to win that.
yeah. I missed the overtime for that. That one I did not stay up. That's why I was like, I gotta stay up for this Canucks game.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Like, they're too late, man. They're too late.
they are. I can't. It's brutal for people who got to wake up early. But uh, yeah. I mean, for the Panthers, like just keep playing the way you are. I think this year is wide open. I would say almost any team left, honestly, has a chance. So you're going to have to play a specific way in each game. Styles make fights. And I think game 3 is going to be a fight, just top to bottom in this. The Bruins are going to be ready. The fans are going to be ready. I mean, that place is going to be booing more than maybe ever there. I'm trying to think of a time where there was someone like as hated as Matthew Tkachuk maybe going there, and the Panthers, who this is the first playoff game back in Boston after winning Game 7. That plays and on a Friday night, like when
It's
everyone's
gonna
having a good time.
I'll say this: any Florida fan, do not wear a. I would definitely try to stay away from the area.
Oh my God! If you wear a Kachuk jersey, don't go within 2 miles of the stadium. I think tomorrow.
If you have a Barkov jersey, it might pass. It
Yeah,
might
maybe.
pass. If it is a Chucky jersey, you may be leaving the black eye. Just be careful.
Yeah, 100%.
Someone who has gone to the Garden before, it's very scary.
Really, I've never been. I've never been. My friend went for Game 7 there last year.
I can't imagine how thrilled he was, and then trying to get
Yeah.
it, and then trying to save that energy for when you leave the building.
Exactly. I think like if I you just gotta wait. Just oh my God, I don't know how I did it.
Yeah, the funniest part about it is even if you do after like I experienced an overtime win for I went to a Penguins and Bruins game, and this was years ago when Fleury was still a Penguin, but even leaving that stadium, we were 45 minutes away from the stadium. We're almost out of Boston at this point, probably out of Boston at this point, and you know at a truck stop. And even then, everyone's still inside is talking about the game. People who were from the game talking about the game, and the first thing we hear is, how about them Bruins?" And they respond with, "They suck." So I mean, like you want to stay away like the entire state. Like it gets scary when the Bruins lose.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I know, and hopefully they're going to lose the Friday. I'm very
Hopefully,
excited
two
for that
more
game.
games in Boston they lose.
That'd be nice. That would be very nice. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just another opportunity to go out there and like, um, I don't want to say like, I mean, I get, yeah, cement your legacy. Honestly, like if you're any of those players, like you know how many eyes are going to be on Game 3? Like it's going to be one of the
Yeah,
more watched games in a while. I would imagine maybe not as big if as like Toronto Boston Game 7, but close to it. I think. Um, yeah, I mean, it's going to be an awesome game. Big circumstances again. Like the series could turn on its head and we could be down 2-1, facing being desperate in game 4, or vice versa. Like it's just crazy the emotional swings. Like some people that's after game 1 we wanted to pack it in. Why even show up to game 2? Why even play? But um, now it's like the shoes on the other foot. The playoffs are just the craziest time. They're so emotional. The overreactions, they never
yeah.
cease to amaze me.
That we can't based on the last win. I mean, we still saw a lot of momentum in the first period from Boston, so we can't necessarily go ahead and say we can't be overconfident and we can't be overly scared if we do lose. I mean, this is still Panthers we're talking about. We just saw how they adjusted to go ahead and take a huge game 2. So if we drop a game 3, they can. I still believe in them that they can go ahead and take a game 4. But at the same time, I can see Boston also responding heavily. So I can't go ahead and be overly confident. I can't be overly scared. I'm remaining neutral here, and hopefully the Panthers do go ahead and come out with a huge game, game number 3.
Yeah. And yeah, I'll just get my closing thoughts here. Yeah, I think the main goal, you just got to take one or the other. Ideally both, but you take one game, make it a best of 3 with 2 at home. I think you'll be in good shape. But yeah, I mean, just keep your head on a swivel out there for all Panthers players, fans. If you're at the game, um, I think Boston is going to set the tone, whatever, try to send a message again. And I think it's crazy to do it. Like the Panthers have loved to play like this all year. They want to play like this. Um, yeah, I mean, these are Brandon Montour think has big game in game 3. Um, he's been great. Oh, my final closing thought, and then we'll wrap up here. Barkov finally is what so many Panthers fans have been wanting for so long to do, is just finally looking like a man in the playoffs and just dominating to the level that we have thought he was capable of. And it's so awesome to see. Led the team in hits yesterday. I mean, that was because half the guys got like thrown out. But if you've ever thought Barkov would have 9 hits in a playoff game as a Panthers fan,
I mean, not
there's
to
no way.
mention Barkov. If you took I saw videos, all of Barkov's like biggest contributions from the entire game of last night, and his entire contribution from that one game looked like a regular season mixtape. Like it was insane. He had so many like tone setting plays that easily could have, it was just it was insane. And it does feel like regular season Barkov is now finally carrying over into postseason Barkov, and now we're seeing a full season of what he can do now. Where it was, for a while it was like, okay, well, can he perform in the playoffs? And now, as you're saying, we're finally seeing this. From last year, he had a solid playoffs. This year, he's starting off to be really, really good and on fire with Reinhart and Tkachuk. So, I mean, this is amazing to see.
Yeah, I wonder what would have the line switch, like it was just so noticeable. Like I don't. It just makes sense logically. Also, I feel like, um, but what do I know? I'm not paid millions to be the coach of the Florida Panthers. So credit to Paul Maurice. Keep doing what you're doing. I loved also what he said in the post game, and I think he's gonna have him ready for Game 3. I got no doubt. Any final thoughts for you? Or we'll wrap up.
No, just gotta get one of these 2 wins here. Still very nervous, and hopefully we go ahead and we see another great game. And I'll say this: my prediction from last game was a very close game. That did not happen. So I'm not going to go ahead and have a prediction because obviously these do not count.
I can't remember if I said on here overtime for game 2. If I did, I'm going to keep riding this until we finally get an overtime. So I'll be right one time because we're getting an overtime, I feel like, at least once.
Eventually. I mean, we had how many against Boston last year? I mean, we have to get one eventually.
Yeah, I think we're going to see overtime eventually in this series, so why not in game 3? Yeah, big game from Brandon Monto in overtime. My predictions. If you got any, drop them in the comments, everyone here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you for listening to Panther vs. the World, and go Cats go.
Right on.